Annie's Sammy Earl, myself. And Annie was holding, I was 3 years old. In a couple of months, maybe 3.5.
Right.
But Leon had on this hat, sort of a smashed down hat, my girl wears a cap maybe.
Right.
With a little bit. And I remember Annie holding it because I was the baby in the back of the sulky. And Leon, you know how he sit there like this was the greatest. I thought it was because he always told us whatever he did, he thought was great because he did it. That's the first recall that I had.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. There are many other things, but that is one of them. I remember in the middle of the night, the other night, I can't remember the second thing. But Annie said, I was very little, I had to be around 3.5 years old. She nailed it down to it. But then, a few months maybe after, maybe she said you were 3.5, but you were very little. But he would run us around the estate, with this horse that was so sway-bag.
Is that Blackie?
Yes. Yes, and with we would pull into Schwiegel's service station in this car, if that's what you wanted to call it. Ada Schwiegel, all the Schwiegels, and he told me they're all dead. He said Joe and...
Yeah, it was here in town?
Well, this was where Highway 61 was here, 25 went here. Schwiegel's was right here.
Okay, the junction.
Yes.
Coming.
And Leon, all the players sat in the front because we had no back and not too much front either because you had to keep your legs like this because the exhaust pipe was really hot. It would get red hot.
No floorboards.
Huh?
No floorboards.
Oh my, don't get too aristocratic, and it had so Annie had to hold me, Leon, Annie holding me, and Sam and Earl. Now sometimes they had to hang on to the fender. We only had, sometimes you had 2 fenders, but not too often, And
Dad, are you listening?
you had to.
He's looking
You had
at
to
you.
sit like this. He'd pull into the station, and he'd say, big shot, fill it up, which meant 1 gallon of gas. Yes, and to go up the hill, the car was, he'd turn it around and we'd back up the hill, so the gas that we had would go into the carburetor.
What she's telling you is right, because I did tell that story before.
It's true. It
Yes,
is.
I know. Is this on? Is this on?
And
yeah,
we
she'll
would
do
march
better.
down the highway, it would be, at times, if we didn't have a car, it would be Leon, shoulder straight, and like 5 players. Leon, Annie,
Pelagius.
Sam, Earl, and myself.
Did he call them Pelagers? Or did everyone?
Yes, we all did because Pop started
He
that.
started calling Pelagers.
And you know where that story comes from, don't you? Well, next to the junk shop, there was a family, kind of Dreckish, that Culbert was their name. And they had about 10, 12 kids. Yes, and my father was not the kindest person. And they always looked, just a mess. And Pop would say, get those Pelagers away from me, So,
Excuse me, do you know what a tape recorder is?
I've got it.
Okay, would you
Well,
like to
yeah.
advise?
Okay.
so,
Interview Betty.
so all of them would call, so Pop would call all his kids Pelagers. And they always looked hungry, he'd say, keep those Pelagers away. And so we adopted that name, and everybody in the family, no matter how old they are, if they're your children, they're Pelagers. And that's where it comes from. It's next door to the junkyard. And I remember Molly saying to me, I said, Molly, how are your Pelagers? And Molly
Hi,
said,
baby.
now that they're college graduates, are they still Pelagers? I said, they will always be Pelagers. Yes, But, and Leon with the gas, and we'd also go to the woods. It was a shortcut.
It was just like going into town or going to school or anything? Or just,
On the highway? I mean,
Right, I know
on the highway,
you-
we'd go to school.
oh, I see.
But remember, I was second grade.
Right.
Leon was in high school.
Ah,
See? So,
Okay.
but we would follow him, and we'd all push the car in the morning. Leon, we'd cover up the what do you call it, radiator
Right.
at night, hoping the car would start in the morning.
all right.
And I was the little. He'd pull out the choke, and I was the one who would have to, step on it. Yes. Annie, Sam, Earl, and they'd push it down the hill, and then they'd all hop in.
Is that so, oh, he was taking you to school. Where were you living? Was it
At the estate.
at the estate? That was with your mom and dad?
My dad never lived there.
Oh, that was with your mom, and your dad was here in town,
At the
in
junkyard.
South, in
Yes.
the scrap division of Shapiro Amalgamated.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay.
Do you have the
Okay.
picture?
Yeah.
So Leon was, when I say more like the father.
Okay, so he was, all
So
right.
you understand that.
So he was in high school when you were in second grade? Yeah.
You'd have to ask Annie about that.
Right, no, but I mean, but there was a big,
Oh, yes, and at that age particularly.
sure.
Remember, there's only 11 years difference between your mother and myself.
Uh-huh.
It
Right.
seemed, now it's not much, but in those, when you're
Sure,
growing up,
sure.
it's a big thing.
Excuse me, Mom was worried, now all she says
Okay.
is orange. Isn't it correct? There it goes.
Okay.
And, there's so many things where, and then he would pick from high school. I was so young, but I can't give you dates, but I could tell
Right,
you what
right.
happened. He would go and get a loaf of bread, salt bread, so then, and lunch meat, and he'd bring it down to the junk shop, and we would have a slab of bread and a piece of meat, and that would be our lunch. That was our lunch.
Oh, when you
And
came
then
back
he'd go
from
back
school
to
or
high
something?
school. Then
Okay.
he'd go back. That was his lunch hour. This is what he had to do, and all of us would meet there. And Liam would do the shopping, a loaf of bread, a piece of meat, and then we'd go back to school.
Oh, he'd see that you got lunch.
Yeah.
So-
And then he worked, after school, he did a couple of jobs, sawyer, sacrifice, all that stuff. But yes, he was always, Liam has been there all my life. He was the one that was always around. When he and Loretta were married, how old was I? 9.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he lived there for 5 years.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yes.
Oh.
Married
On South Mill.
No, at the estate.
But the estate out in the country estate. The country
Yes,
home.
the country estate. So they lived there.
Ah.
So I sort of, Mommy and Mary grew up with me, or I grew up with them. I don't
Okay.
know which.
Right, because you were 9, or you were 10 when Mom was born, or 11, whatever you said.
Well,
Okay.
let's see.
She was born in 37.
Annie was married when she was 18. I'm 9 years younger than Annie. So
Okay.
she had, I
Oh,
had
so Annie and they were married at the same time.
about Annie in November, and Leon in July. So,
Okay.
and Mary was born in May, February, it's my birthday, March, April, May.
Okay.
You are.
Okay.
It's within a short time.
Okay.
So there's 11 years difference between Mary and I, and there's 12 years difference between Molly and I.
Okay. Oh, so they were there. All right. And then you started going to high school and they were growing up as kids. Oh, okay.
You see?
And after 5 years, then they moved into town to South
They
Mill
moved
Street.
to the building that Pop owned, which was known as the Block Building, which was right across from the Shots.
Right. Okay. I remember the Shots house.
Okay, so that's where Leon and Loretta lived.
Mm-hmm.
They left my estate, and they broke my heart when they took my place.
You remember leaving the
Very
house?
well, very well.
But this was heartbreaking to me, because I had such an interesting life, But this is it. So it fits in there. I may be off with it.
No, the dates. I'm just
The dates
curious
are
what
not-
happened.
But this is what happened.
Before the first grade, we were 15
Right.
now. I was.
Then
5
you
years
stayed
old.
there.
That's what I said. 5 years
Okay.
you lived it with us.
And you stayed
Well,
there,
at
and
the
then
estate. And I
Until you
hated
went through
every
high
moment
school.
of it, huh?
Until you went through high school. And
I did
then,
not go through high school here.
Oh, you go to St. Louis, or?
Yes, did Pop throw me out, or
You decided to seek greener pastures.
that too, because I hid this place. I always hid this
Yeah.
place. It's like the shroud to me.
So you're not retiring yet.
I don't believe so. I- And then I can't recall, it will come to me where I met the Tabashny family. They had a Cherokee Street, they had a liquor store there. And Pauline Tabashny had a home.
Wait, excuse me, can I just interrupt? What was the tape that was on there? That wasn't the one.
I put the Leon's tapes in there.
Is this working? Is this working?
No, I've got to get this tapes.
Okay. And I saw a different life, and I stayed with her, went to Roosevelt High School in St. Louis. I had a first year here, then there, and then, well, you don't want my life, but I moved from the south side, which is not where I wanted to live, to University City. And my life would be interesting too, because how I got here is quite amazing.
Then you went to WashU for a while.
Yes. And
I like that story a lot.
and then, yes, I lived in University City, 7354 Carnell and 545.
No,
Now I
Betty.
didn't.
Right there.
Hi, Stevie. Daphne, let's go.
Interview
Everybody.
with Betty Shar, Thursday, February 24th, 1994. About her first memories of Leon Shapiro as a young girl.
My parents
Annie, can you hear?
were first married.
No, that, oh, this one?
Steve went over to your grandparents' house one day with
Sit by you.
with David.
Uh-huh.
And he came home and he said, you know what? He said they had beer in the refrigerator.
Beer! Grandfather had beer?
That's what he said.
Brain cells was high fever and alcohol.
Yes.
So is immoral. I like that. Cause? Who you calling cause? Who are you calling cause?
We have to teach her to say, oh, not Ollie.
Aye.
Ollie said she's tired of being called a street. No, she said, I'm not.
Allie.
She said, I'm not a street. And I said,
Yes, love.
what do you want us to call you, Alexis? So she said, no. What do you want me to call you? She said, Ollie.
Say Ollie. Right.
See, that's good.
She's saying her L's better and better every day. She used to say E. And now she's gone to Awi, which is better.
I'm tired of being a street.
They're like a little circus.
Well, first, before we started, what would you like? You would have to ask me questions. My first recall of Leon.
Yes, I just would like to know your first memories. What kind of things he liked to do when he was not in school or not working? What he was doing? He
Well,
was
this-
reading or playing or.
Well, my first recall, Leon was always the boss in the family, the matriarch that we all looked up to. Whatever he told us, we thought was the right thing to do and the right way to act.
Even over your father.
He was more of my father than my father, because my father was not the nicest type of man, which is an understatement. We had, I think I was about, Ann said about 3.5 years old. And my dad, in his nice moment, would buy us very peculiar things, such as a sulky. And we did not live with my father. It was Mom and her 5 Pellegris. And we had this horse named Blackie, which Leon said was the fastest running horse, was quite sway-backed, and we were always afraid it might fall over at any time, but he said this is really a fast horse. And he hitched it to this sulky, which really sounds, great. We lived on a big estate. And it was, Leon was the driver, and there was Sammy, Earl, Annie was holding me. I was just 3.5 years old. And he, hitched the horse, and he told us this was the way to live, and we're really somebody with this sulky. How many people would have something like this? I always remembered that. Now, if you would he always had a desire for us to do better. He stressed many times, now you don't want to be like your dad. He adored his mother. He admired her. He was not very proud of his father. And he said, you must strive to be better. And he always told us that we were Romanian royalty. And as a child, I thought, well, I had different visions of royalty than the way we lived. But he said, remember, you're Romanian royalty and you are somebody. Walk straight, shoulders back, puff out your chest, head high.
How old were you?
Oh, I heard this all my life.
All your life?
All my life. As far back as I can remember. And we would, most of the time, we had a car, if you want to call it that. But there were times when we didn't have a car, and we would walk down the highway. Leon first, Annie, Sam, Earl, and myself. Throw the shoulders back, walk straight, carry a big stick, And he'd sing to us, and we thought he had a beautiful, beautiful voice. It was the worst. But because he told us that, we sort of believed in him. And, or we'd walk through the woods, through Schriegel Woods to school. Now, I am not exactly sure if I was in the 2nd grade, 3rd grade, or could it have, Leon was in high school. But if we had to walk, he would go to school first, and I would stay at Pop's in the morning at the scrapyard. And Earl, Sam, we were all in grammar school. Leon and Annie were in high school. And wait, and then we'd go to school later. At lunchtime, Leon would get a quarter of whatever it cost, and he'd go buy the bread at the lunch meat, and we'd have sandwiches, all 5 Pellegris. And then he would go back to school. We'd all go back to school. And after school, you better hightail it down to the scrapyard. He'd cut iron, sack rags, do whatever we had to do. And then we'd all go home to Mom's place, the estate. And that was it.
There's a story about some money that he saved. He wanted to go to college, but he couldn't. And we don't have the details.
Leon,
do you remember that?
Part of it. Dr. Yaskett, Dr. Harry Yaskett, thought Leon was very bright. And Leon wanted to be a doctor in the worst way. And he took him took him on a trip to Boulder Dam, Colorado. I don't remember what was out, I guess a university, I'm not sure. But Leon he always had a thirst for knowledge. And he had some money saved. And I don't know if it was Leon or my mother or both that had put away a few dollars for Leon's college education, I think in Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's a college there. And Pop stole the money and said that he could not go. He used to stay there and work.
And how old was Leon?
Out of high school. He was ready for college.
20.
Oh, he was younger than that. I think Leon was probably 18, 19 years old. That's usually when you get out of high school.
Do you remember his reaction?
Well, he was
Devastated.
Absolutely devastated. Because he had books in our attic at the estate that Dr. Yaskett had given him. And he was very interested. This was he had such a keen desire to be a doctor. And Dr. Yaska thought he would be a good doctor.
And do you have any memories from your early childhood of Leon reading something? What kind of material he was reading? Or
I don't-
Did he play with you guys?
Did he play with us? We didn't exactly know what play with us. I don't know what you mean by that. You mean with games?
Kids, yes.
We didn't have games.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have that kind of life. But he would, was always the family. He'd take all of the Pellegris with him. We would go to Hal Creek. We had a truck, an old truck. And Hal Creek was where the kids would swim. And Leon and Annie taught me how to swim at Hal Creek. But there was Sammy and Earl. And I think for a dime, or was it a quarter for 2 people, but Leon would say, oh, you don't mind, 3 others, and we would all go swim with this quarter in this old truck. We were always included. It wasn't just Leon.
It was always his
It was
family.
always the family.
He was always taking care of the family.
Yes, in some way or another. Come on, you can go along. Or, yes. I remember next door to our estate was Possum, Schwarze. And Possum knew we were going to school. Well, you'd have to be deaf not to know because you could hear our car, quite a ways from the house. And he would always just be walking out as casually, so we should notice him. And Leon say, we couldn't stop the car because if we did, we could never get it started again. It'd just hop on, he'd pick up everybody. He was just a friendly, fun person. Very serious at times. But you could have fun with him because with his seriousness, and he was rather bossy. He could be bossy.
We know him. We
Yes.
all know.
He could be very bossy and sometimes downright cruel with his remarks. But he was also fun to be with, entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And he could commandeer a whole conversation, even as a young person.
How do you think he got all his wit? Was it from his mother? How do you remember him always witty, always with an idea? How do you think he built up his personality? Was your mother like that?
No. In my eyes, Leon and I totally disagreed on about my mother. Leon worshipped her, absolutely worshipped her. The things she did, how she moved, why she moved from Pop, because they never lived together since I was 10 days old. And the reason being, God, my sister will kill me, he tried to choke my mother to death when I was born because he was not very happy that I was born, which always gives you a feeling of security, So my mother left him when I was 10 days old. I forgot what the question was that you asked. Oh, where did he get this wit? My father was not a dumb man. Not at all.
Cruel but not dumb.
Extremely cruel. Oh, no, he was not dumb. And there were times when he could be downright charming.
Mm-hmm.
At the next second, he could be back to his meanness. Oh, yes, he could be quite charming. Extremely cruel man. My mother, on the other hand, was a very determined, strong person. They both very strong personalities there. But my mother did it she was unforgiving, exactly like Leon. If you hurt him, he remembered it for 40 years. He would never forgive you. He was not a forgiving person. Neither was my mother. She was more of an aloof type person. Pop was not. He was more gregarious. Mean as hell, but gregarious. My mother was, if I were to meet this type of woman today, I would say this is a very cold person. That is my opinion.
So you think Leon was lucky to have a combination of personalities, both of your
Yes.
mother and
My
father?
father had the temper, a violent temper. And Leon had a temper also. We all do. But my mother could smother the temper, but hold a grudge. I think Pop would, he could cut you down. He could be so horrible, you have no idea. I think he would forget about it. Or he would be angry for some time, but a little more forgiving, because I think he liked people around.
So he needed to forgive.
Yes.
Forget.
Yes. My
But
mother did not need people around. I think her children. But I don't think she really needed people.
Anybody else? Do you think that because of his adoration for his mother, he chose a woman like Loretta? Is there any touch between Loretta and Nellie, right, your mother?
Yes.
Name? Is there any coincidence? And also, how did he meet? Do you remember how he met Loretta? How they started dating?
Leon?
Yes.
I don't
How
remember.
long? Or
I think it was a fairly short while. I was, Loretta was working at Deloge Hospital in St. Louis County. She and Dorothy.
and Dorothy.
Yes. Leon was, best of my recollection, was driving. My father chased everybody off, each kid, but at different times.
Why? Change.
Because he was mean. He had
Just-
such a violent temper. He would kill you and then tell you never to come back. And we would stay at the estate and go to school, whatever, but we would go through the woods and everything to avoid him, and then he would ask that you come back. Not nicely, but so forth. I think Leon went to St. Louis and worked for R.H. Donnelly. I may have a mistake there, but it was, I think it was Donnelly, or J.M. Donnelly. It was a trucking line. And I think he drove a semi for a short while. I think this was the time. The Schott family lived across, right near my father. Pop lived at 206, and the Schott family lived, they were far more classier than us. They lived on the hill, 2 blocks away. And the first time I saw Loretta, remember, I was only about 9 years old. Loretta, I thought she was so beautiful. She had short curly hair, a navy blue dress with white collar and cuffs. And Leon, very tall and so proud. I saw them walking through our front yards, which the weeds, I think, were as tall as Loretta, if not taller. But I thought she was adorable. Past that, I don't remember. I don't remember
So
anything
you
until.
remember them together. You don't remember the courtship or
No.
or
No, but I remember her family.
Did you have friends? Were you friends with members of the family
Oh
at
no!
your age?
Oh
No.
no! We couldn't have friends.
Oh.
No.
So it's always family. Always. That's how you
Yes.
kept company.
My father would never allow us to have friends, and I think we would have been too embarrassed to have anybody at our place. But we were, I would say most of the family. I was not. I was the one that didn't have to work as much.
You're the baby, right?
Right. But Annie and Leon and the rest of them really had to work. But we didn't know what it was to have friends like a normal family. No, never. And Pop or Leon used to say, you never want to mingle with those people. They're from the other side of the tracks. We thought this was very funny. We thought they really must be low class, because we were this Romanian royalty. And he would always tell us that. And I think we really wanted to believe this, and I think in part we did believe this.
To go on.
I guess so, but there was a lot, in spite of all the problems that we had in the way we lived, there was a lot of laughter in our home. A lot. I think through high school, in the National Guard, Harry Brozovic and Pat Murphy. Of course, Pop didn't know this because we were never allowed to have anybody. And I think they all belonged to the National Guard.
How old was he?
Leon must have been about 22.
And he was married already? No, he was not.
This is where I'm saying I may have a problem with age there. Maybe Leon was 18 or 17.
Right after high school?
During high school. Yes.
So he had many activities.
Yes. Well, the reason he did this because I think you got about $2 or $3 a month.
Oh, extra.
Yes.
It was a lot of money.
If you went to National Guard. And you've seen pictures of him with the straight head?
Yes.
That was it. Now, but I think he was in high school. And he would walk several miles to this. He could never get a ride because he was a Jew. And people would pass him. Of course, there weren't the cars that you see today, but they would not pick him up. What else did you ask me? I forgot.
You were telling me about his close friends.
Harry, I think this Harry Berbershwick, when they started in business, when he started with Earl, I think Harry was the secretary.
Oh, so they started together?
No, he worked. Leon offered him a job. I think he was the secretary. And Pat Murphy worked for Leon. I don't know for how long, but he did work. And then finally, he said, I'm moving to California. And that was it. And I think Harry had TB, and I think he was in an institution for a while and then passed away.
Was it a big shock for you?
I can't tell you that because this is so many years ago, and I don't remember. I was not here at that time, so I don't know. But I'm sure because they had been friends for a long time.
Do you remember when Leon started the business?
1946.
And were you around? Were you here, or you had moved?
I had moved. I was living in Chicago.
So you decided to move as fast as you could.
Long before that, because I have always hated Festus. It always put a shroud. You know what a shroud is? This place always is like a cloud over me or a shroud over me. I always hated it.
And do you think Leon, because he went through the same things or maybe worse things there?
Oh, much worse.
And
much
why
worse.
do you think he stayed?
Well,
do you have any idea?
I think because, my mother was here.
Oh, that's a big
My
reason.
mother was here, and by the time my mother died, Leon had a family already.
Mm-hmm.
He was working. He was well known. He had a truck. He was doing.
He was growing.
He was growing, and this is where he made his living. This is why he stayed
so
here.
So he stayed, you think, because of your mother?
Well, and his family.
And his family.
And his family, Loretta, and
her family, probably.
They were a very nice family. And yes, this was his home, and perhaps he wasn't affected by this place as I was, even though we had some problems with being Harry Jews' children, there were some problems. This was his home, and Leon had the personality, the smile, that he was well liked, and maybe overlooked a lot.
And it helped him.
That's how he survived.
Thick skin.
I don't think he really had thick skin.
He just used as a way of surviving.
That's right.
You think he
I think
felt
Leon was sensitive. I
Very
think Leon was a
sensitive.
sensitive man.
Uh-huh. I think so too. But I think he's...
But this was a cover-up, and we all have our different ways of covering up.
What else should I ask you? Well, we mainly wanted to know about how he met Loretta. Any other memories you have about him growing up, or you growing up having him as basically the head of the family? And when your father died, what happened? How you felt? If he took charge of the family, was it better, worse,
He was
in what way?
always in charge of the family.
Because your father was not around anyway, right?
He was around. We saw him almost every day, except when we were chased off.
Uh-huh.
But you could never talk to my father. He would always, Leon used to be in high school plays all the time. He ran track. Pop would go to the plays, but he would boo him instead of compliment him. He was a super critical person. You never heard the word, "You look nice, that was a nice job, you look well, I'm proud of you." Oh, I never heard this in my whole life. Is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah, I wanted to know, when your father died, although you didn't live together, he was always around. Because your mother left him, but you always
When I
saw
was
him.
a baby.
Yes, but you always
But
saw
I
him.
saw him, oh yes.
He was always around.
Oh yes.
Your mother accepted him around? You were not
No,
living with him.
you misunderstand. My dad lived at 206 South Mill Street. We lived at the estate.
Ah, I see.
Leon, we would have to stop there in the morning, so whether we walked there from the estate to 206 or whether we drove there, we saw Pop almost every day.
I see. So you were living close to each other in a way.
About 2.5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
But and Leon worked there, and Annie worked there. They all worked there. But what I'm saying, we didn't live together. You knew cruelty from my father most of the time. When we got to Mom's place or the estate, there was tranquility, even though it was not the nicest place. There was laughter there.
Warm,
Yes.
sort of.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's what it is. I didn't really understand. He was always living around, your father.
Yes.
And
yes.
when did he die?
1957.
Oh, so long time after.
Yes.
So Mary knew him and the kids knew him. They were.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
And
And he was nice to the grandchildren. I understand. I was not here. He was not nice to his children.
maybe age changed.
It mellowed him. Yes. Yes, he would. Loretta always invited him. I think Earl and Annie, they were here, invited him. And I think he acted decently as he got
He aged.
older. Yes. But he was something else when he was young. Yes. Horrible is the better word.
And if you have anything else to add, go on.
I think you would have to ask me because, and I have to be a little bit careful with this, Thais, because the other day when I think Molly was asking me certain questions at the restaurant, and my sister Ann was sitting across from me, and I knew that she never liked for me to talk about the home life. She never does. And Sam is blocked it out totally. And Leon would only, in latter years, we would talk about funny little things, sayings that Pop said, but you didn't discuss the home life. And she said to me on the way home, why do you hurt me? I said, how did I hurt you? She said, it hurts me when you talk about our home life. I said, I never knew that. I thought that you were just embarrassed about it, because with me, I really don't care. She said, no, you hurt me. I said, I will never discuss it again. I never knew it hurt you so much. And I said, I will never discuss it with you. Never. Or in front of you. So that's why I have to be a little bit careful.
Okay, let me see.
Always very ambitious. He wanted to make something of himself. Always had a drive. He would work many hours. Never complained about work. He felt that this was really very good for you, mentally, physically. He could not, and he had absolutely no respect for a lazy person, none whatsoever, or a person that wanted to work from 9 to 5, get out there and work until the job is finished. He always believed in that.
Do you know how he got all his wisdom, all his little sayings that we all know? Do you remember him already doing that when he was growing up? Do you think he felt like doing that because he was the head of the family? He had to direct you, and
Yes, he did. He felt, oh yes.
and he always had those sayings. Do you remember him?
Well,
He
not all,
repeated
because
after-
he had so many quotes. He loved that.
Yeah. How did he acquire that?
Well, I think picked up from different people.
Like radio? Did he listen to a lot of radio, or did he
Well,
read a lot?
Leon read a lot. We had a physical radio, but we didn't have it. Pop had radio. Sammy had a crystal set that we would listen to once in a while, but we never had those luxuries. He read.
And how did he get his books? People that liked you?
Jasket, yes.
So this
Our
doctor.
teacher
Uh-huh.
would give him a book.
Okay.
Oh, yes, you had to learn, you had to read. And the reason that you learned is because of the books. We had nothing else, really.
Mm-hmm.
And, yes, that's what it was. We always liked to learn.
Do you remember how old he was when he went to work with Farmer Huey?
Newt Huey. We always tease Leon about this. Oh, he was working from sun up to sundown. Pop chased him off through high school. I don't know if it was 2 years of high school or if it was 4 years of high school. And he didn't know that. But he thought this man he admired him. Why, I can't tell you. But he did. I never met the man, but I've heard that name all my life.
And he lived with him?
Yes, because Pop didn't want him at the house. Or at our house, our
What happened
estate.
to you guys when he was away?
Well, he would come over. He would get borrow one of Newt Huey's horses and come over and visit. But he avoided my father. Yes, he used to come to see Mom every week. It wasn't that far, but he didn't have that much time either between schoolwork and
So he
working
didn't
on the
date?
farm.
So he didn't have dates or balls, dances and things that people did.
He worked, but the women always were crazy about him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, yes,
He was very attractive.
very. but you've seen pictures
Oh
of him.
yes.
A very handsome man.
Yes.
Oh yes, the women liked him so much. Now, the girls didn't, but the parents didn't because he was a Jew.
There was always the barrier.
Yes, yes. Well, not with everybody, but oh yes. I remember this a long time ago. It was very, very anti-Semitic here. There were signs. I even remember that over a door. I think it was High Point. I believe that was the name that said no Jews or dogs allowed. And also, Leon told me about this creek, and not Hell Creek, another creek, where it said the same thing. Yes.
How awful.
Yes. And and he went with this one woman here. Thelma Barnard was her name. I think Herb Bazan either married her or dated her. I don't know which. But Thelma's father, the thought of going with a Jew was just pulsed him. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask David if he has anything to add. I think I covered. A very proud man.
Yes, a very proud man. And he didn't. I don't think Leon was an open person. Not ever.
That's surprising. I always thought of him as not open about himself. Is that what you mean?
He may have been in latter years.
Ah.
But Leon was a very private person. He thought that everything should remain in the family. No, nobody should know. No outsider should know his business. But a very, he felt family tie was the most important thing in life. Family ties.
And add whatever you want if you want to.
I don't
You're
know
done?
what else to add. Or Molly.
Are you?
I don't think there's anything, unless you would ask me, then I
Yeah.
can answer you.
Because I don't have specifics, it's really hard also for me. And it's fine. Anything you want, or if you don't have anything else, it's fine.
There's so
We
much
talked a
to-
lot.
It was just he was very proud of his family. This is my family, had certain pride. Everybody.
Do you think you are who you are because of him in part? How did he influence you to?
Must
Do what
always
you-
strive to do better.
That's something you always learn from
Yes.
him?
Yes.
And it's always with you?
Oh yes.
And you think you did better because of him?
Oh yes.
You
We
think?
always had to have approval from him in some way. I don't know why, but we did. We always.
Did
had to
you
have-
feel that you had his approval for your life?
Yes, because he said to me, "Very proud of you."
That's nice. That's very nice. That's interesting. I always felt that I had to have his approval too.
I wonder why.
I was always, and I was talking to Pat Shapiro, who's a daughter-in-law, and she said, I never felt like I lived for his expectations. I always thought I was not good enough because I always needed more approval from him.
I think if you were to ask his children,
Yeah,
they would tell you that.
yeah.
And even the way we dressed, not that he was a fashion authority, because he wasn't, but you have to sit a certain way. He would
Yes.
never approve of this.
Slacks.
Well, he was not crazy about it. He accepted
Uh-huh.
this. The dress should be below the knee, and you sat like a lady, and you sat up straight at the breakfast table, and you
Yeah.
came down dressed. You don't lay around in robes and pajamas and all that. He hated that.
Since you remember him, since you were a little
Oh, yes.
girl, you remember
You get
that?
up and you're dressed and you're ready for the day.
You remember him telling
oh,
you
yes.
that?
Oh, yes.
And your mother never said, it's none of your business, this is my house?
Never. she idolized Leon. And
Oh.
Leon was her pet. She
Oh.
always denied it. He always denied it. I said, Leon, I know better than that. Because when Mom would make a cake, you'd get the big spoon of the cake dough, which we all love. And I'd get a little spoon. And if you needed a white shirt pressed, she would always press yours. Mine not so hot, but yours were perfect.
Uh-huh.
Yes, there was a...
She was special for her. He was
I
special
think
for
he
her.
should have built a shrine to my mother. Yes. Once I said to him, I didn't think Mom was as perfect as you said she was, Leon. You know, he said, I don't want to discuss Mother with you, and didn't talk about her for 5 years with me.
I remember once, the last time I saw, no, the time before last I saw Leon, it was 4th of July, and we were at Dahe? I forgot the name. This restaurant we just ate.
Dohex.
Dohex, whatever. Really bad. And we were having breakfast, and this woman comes to the table to say hello to Dr. Glasgow or to Leon, I don't remember. And Leon says after she was not really, she didn't have any makeup on, and her dress was really ugly, and it was a holiday, and she was in a restaurant. She had no makeup, and her hair was very badly kept. And he said, oh, this is so-and-so, but what an unkempt woman. And he repeated it for five times or 6, and he was, what an unkempt woman. So I understood how important for him it was to, to look like you do. To have makeup on and your hair done.
Not makeup necessarily.
No, to look nice.
To look clean,
clean and nice.
And neat.
Well, to look well.
And first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
you come down dressed.
And I never forget Leon repeating, what an unkempt woman. And he repeated it all through breakfast. He couldn't take the woman from his mind. And yeah, she didn't have a nice figure. But it didn't bother me, but it bothered him tremendously to see that person that way. And I learned a little more about Leon that day.
Oh, yes. And my mother was always dressed. And is always dressed, even when she's not feeling so well, which she never tells you about. She's always dressed. This morning she said, well, what are our plans for the day? I said, it's 6:45. Do I have to make a decision right now?
So Anne is the same way.
Yes.
Very, very nice. Always very nice. Always very dressed.
Always.
Your mother was like that.
Always.
How interesting.
He was a critic. Leon was a critical man.
Constructive, right? In a way of constructive.
No, damn right critical, if you wanted to know, Yes.
Uh-huh.
And he could be cruel, sit up. I don't want it. He did not want to stop around him at any time.
I remember once he came to visit us in Austin, and I said, I'm going to cook dinner for you. He said, no, let's go out. I said, no, I want to cook dinner for you. And I made pasta, and, I'm half Italian, or part Italian, and I cook with a lot of garlic. And
Oh, yes.
And I cooked with a lot of garlic, and he ate it, the first spoonful, and he said, what is this that tastes like garlic? And I said, garlic? And we all laughed. I still don't know if he was enjoying it or not.
He wouldn't tell you.
No.
I'll tell you.
No.
Another thing that you might want to know, all these women, all his life, I think, or practically all his life, these women would bake pies and cakes for him, but with lard, which he hated.
Oh, yeah, I
He
know.
would say, oh, Florence, this was wonderful. It went right in the garbage, and next year or next month, she'd bring him another one, and that went in the garbage. So these women thought he was wonderful. Oh, the best. And ask Loretta. They always made something for him.
He has this thing about fat, right?
Yes.
He never.
Grease. We can't stand grease. None of us can. I guess it comes from him. Grease. Greasy foods.
Mm-hmm. And I can understand how he stand living here.
I can't either because everything is with grease. I can't stand it. But he made him feel like
She was special.
oh, a wonderful cook. With his, he was critical, constructive, but he made you feel good about yourself after some of this constructive way. He would say, Titus, you look beautiful today.
Yes.
He had that way too.
Yes, he always had something to say to you, to make you feel good.
Yes, yes. And the last time I saw Leon, which is not very long ago, it was in January, he and Harry flew down.
Oh.
I had dinner with him. And it was 150 miles round trip, but I went down to Key Biscayne to have dinner with him. Oh, he wrote me a letter the next day saying, oh, what a wonderful visit. And the conversation was lively, and we had such a good time. We had a lot of laughter and so forth. Yes. And then he also sent me pictures of that evening. So
He always had something to say, right?
yes,
Nice.
and pretty nice. Yes.
And it was always like that when you were children.
Yes.
How he acquired? Did your mother do that?
I don't ever remember my mother doing that. Not ever.
So he
Or-
probably
or-
saw how people
or-
should behave, right?
Or my father. Neither, never a compliment. And I don't ever remember a compliment from my mother. Not ever.
And he developed this,
I think from seeing
seeing how people
Uh-huh.
respected other
other
people.
people. I
Just
don't-
observation, just pure
Yes.
intelligence.
Yes, I don't ever in my life remember a compliment from my mother or father. No. You just see what goes on.
So this is, it tells me that he was a self-made man, not
Oh,
only
no, oh, without a doubt.
financially, but
Oh, without a
pers-
doubt. Without a doubt. I think that applies to the whole family. To the entire family. Annie?
oh
Earl?
yes,
Oh, without
she
a
is
doubt.
amazing. You are amazing.
Really?
Oh yes.
I think it's...
You don't meet people like that anymore, like you
is he
guys.
right, Thomas?
Yes.
Sound like
I'm very proud of belonging to this family. Yeah, it's very.
What a
It's-
lovely...
My mother always said, you marry into a family, you don't just marry the man.
That's true.
So you be careful. You always be careful because you're going to be part of the family, and your daughters and sons will carry their name. And I never, you know how you hear.
You
what
hear
my-
it when mother says it, but
Yeah.
you don't pay any attention
No,
to it.
Dan, but I'm so proud. I'm so proud to belong to this family
Oh, how lovely.
because they're not people. They're not people like this anymore, like you guys. You don't see people, sticking together and visiting and calling on the phone and one helping the other. Everybody's, the families are all
Spreads.
spread and
I
nobody
thought it was just where I lived in somewhat. I
No,
guess it's-
everybody's like that.
We are. I think Leon was really the inspiration.
sister's on the phone.
Oh, she is?
They said you have to either come in here or go in there. There's no phone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's okay.
I'll be right there.
Thank you very much.
Leon was the inspiration for all of us. He gave us the drive. No question about it.
Thank you. You're so good.